as she looked ahead on a bejeweled throne shining with dark gold radiance. Her gaze was that of utmost calm as she stared ahead, the entity wrapped in dark gold radiance buzzing at this moment as his heavy voice echoed out. For the uptight Facingid Queen to visit me in this hellhole, I wonder what it could be for.
Who?
As he spoke, hazy outlines of sacks of golden brilliance and treasure buzzed around him, with the eyes of the Facingid Queen becoming sharper from the sense of oppression emanating from this being. His power did not stem from the mind or body. He was an entity whose strength stemmed solely from the uncountable number of treasures he held. Chapter 3149, The Atlas of Existence. A 4. Sun-winged leprechauness. This was a title, as well as a type of existence that was afforded the highest peak of power for the source of existence of leprechauns. Their very existence cultivated wealth. With the more wealth that one held and accumulated, the stronger one became. Their authority was known as the authority of opulentia. The Facingid Queen hated many things about the Var-el-Eonic Omniverse record, but she hated this entity the most, purely because of his power. Being stronger than both her and the satirist nymph, this entity wantonly did what he wished, since they were locked in here, as apart from his wealth, everything else about him was horrid. She looked at him seated on his bejeweled throne, his massive figure looking short and stout as behind his back, the dark gold glow of countless suns formed his wings. Sun-winged. He genuinely had trillions of suns making up the structure of his wings. As within these suns, the Facingid Queen knew there were countless mountains of treasures hidden within those miniature suns, as she kept her eyes straight into the two luminous suns that were his eyes, as she replied. An intruder in the depths of this Eonic Omniverse record. He doesn't seem to be one of them, as he seems to be an explorer or something that inadvertently arrived here. Oh? Her words roused the attention of the sun-winged leprechauness as he moved his face out of the dark gold veil. The features of his face could be seen as golden rings hung from his ears and nose, his bright lips laced with light as they smiled ear to ear as he replied. Why is this of importance? They're likely not bound to this Eonic Omniverse record like we are, as they can leave at any time. Why waste any breath on this? What makes you come to see me about them? His eyes swirled with a treasured light of brilliance as he asked, and the Facingid Queen silently simmered in her thoughts before she replied. One of those who entered has an unblemished base of existence, untouched, unused. They know it as an autarchical base, as their system of existence leans more on the conceptual manipulation of existence. Yea. The moment these words were uttered, the visage of the sun-winged leprechauness flashed and appeared inches away from the Facingid Queen. An action that caused the Facingid Queen to tremble slightly, but she controlled herself and staunchly looked ahead as the entity opposite her smiled ear to ear, his hot breath blowing over her face. Autarchical, a source of existence one arrives after advancing conceptual extremes of correctness. If there really is an unblemished autarchical base, an unblemished base of existence, you could have used that against your base of existence to escape this Var-el-Eonic Omniverse record. If that is the case, why are you here? Don't tell me a doll like you was too weak for him. His hand rose as his rough fingers caressed her smooth cheeks. Veiling her disgust, the Facingid Queen continued calmly. He has enough means as someone who was able to randomly appear within this Omniverse record. I tested him, but he proved to be difficult, even though he has yet to touch his base of existence. He also has an autarch beside him, a fair, dainty female, someone you could get your hands on. She waved her hands as she spoke, showing the image of Noah and the Sanctus Autarch as seeing them. The massive sun-winged leprechauness only became brighter as a raucous laughter boomed. Haha, you know me well, but this still doesn't. His autarchial base is so unique that it would be big enough for you and I to share, and even have left over for the satirist nymph. Immense silence descended. The bejeweled rings all over the face of the sun-winged leprechauness bobbed and weaved as they made a unique sound, his rough face shining with a splendor of gold as seriousness set on it. He seemed to have thought a great deal about the words of the Facingid Queen before he replied. You believe even the nymph is necessary to take down these two? His eyes lingered on Noah and the Sanctus Autarch. and the answer from the Facingid Queen was one of heavy affirmation. Yes, when you see him for yourself, you will understand. But his base of existence, even if there were 5 of us in here, it would still be enough for all of us to share and use to get out of here. The reality was set. The visage of the sun-winged leprechauness nodded. Well, even if we were to escape and get out there again, we would likely have to hide from the eyes of those wankers. Those so-called protectors of existence. Oh well. A life on the run is a fun one. All right, I'll need a few days to prepare. You go ahead and tell the nymph. A few days? The brows of the Phasingid Queen rose as the massive figure of the sun-winged leprechauness turned around and smiled. Yes, I shall increase my wealth even more and have my opulentia authority at its peak before breaking out of here. To do that, it seems my lineage will have to be reduced once again, but this time for good. Ah! He shook his head as if he felt great sorrow, and yet his face had a deep smile of amusement and greed. The Phasingid Queen heard his words and gazed at him with clear disgust, to which he turned around and scoffed while moving towards the many golden mountains stretched out around this region. Oh, don't be such a hypocrite. Only the 3 of us could possibly leave, as if we succeed. All others have to be left here. And after we are gone, so will our roles be gone as artificial Ankyras, as this eonic omniverse record will perish soon after. Why does it matter if I kill them all now for greater wealth or let it all rot in here over time? You have to be smart with it, otherwise. His body buzzed as it shone with an incandescent dark gold authority. In such a heavy atmosphere, he smiled again while waving his hands. Go on now. I'm over here getting giddy at going against autarchical authority. My opulentia has not had something like that in so long. I wonder how this source of existence compares. Greed buzzed around him as with a glimmer of dark gold brilliance, he disappeared. The Phasingid Queen looked at this scene with calm before she also took a step and disappeared in another direction. A few days. This was how long the intruder would have before the full weight of 3 omniversal Ankyras came unto him. Chapter 3150, The Atlas of Existence. 5. Time was the one thing that very few entities could entirely control. It came and went quickly and without waiting for anyone, where even a fantastical manipulator of time like Noah could not entirely break free of its shackles. Thus, time passed within the infinite existential omniversal seed. The day granted within the safe zone perished, and yet no enemies invaded. And another day passed thereafter, and still no enemies invaded. Day after day came and went, until an entire week went by. The existential omniversal seed was taken down to the size of the sea, and all of Noah's forces remained hidden in the nondescript corner of the Var-El Eonic Omniverse Record. Immense wheels of progression remained within a small area of the existential omniverse. Boom! Again! Noah's voice boomed out as his figure withstood a massive, colorless ancient tree whose branches were smashing down all around. His innate, infinite, quintessential bloodline reflecting and withstanding a large portion of the strikes, as after that, the colorless radiance was circling around, akin to a movable bastion. Looking at it closer, one would be able to see a glimmer of a dull autarky as it seemed to be genuine autarchical authority. And this was Noah's figure alone, without any fusion. From behind, another entity blazing with dignity crossed him, 2 icy swords swinging down as the potent aura of Paracosm backed by multiple greater omniversal authorities cascaded down. It was none other than Sona, who brought down with her a unique sensation of penetrative attacks. On her head, multicolored wings could be seen as they caused her figure to glitter around as if she were a feather, appearing and reappearing in multiple different areas constantly. Yet even her dazzling radiance couldn't reach him. She looked at him with a profound gaze as she asked with a powerful laugh, "Have you actually reached autarky? No way you can withstand even the Granny Empress and not be at autarky." Her eyes were bright. Behind her, little Capuleti, Piety, Fenrir, Darius, Tiamatherian, and many other powerful combatants of the infinite existential omniversal seed surged towards Noah with profound intent and purpose as he was being swarmed all around. It was to the extent that even below him, forgive me for this, Father. Even the visage of Henry lit up with the influence of two greater omniversal authorities as he struck towards Noah. Yet even with hundreds of combatants surging around Noah, he stood tall as his Invictus Dominion wings finally moved behind his back. They only flickered as if they were expanding, as if they were stretching. Yet the moment they did so, all causality twisted. The weavings of existential extremity authorities themselves seemed to go out of sorts, and an undeniable burst of power erupted from Noah as all those coming towards him were pushed back. SAA! Yet one being managed to remain strong, with piercing branches forming an immaculate figure surrounded by autarchical authority, arriving right before Noah, piercing through his remaining defenses as he had to dodge to the right to evade. The eyes of the Sanctus Empress were blazing with glory as Noah stared straight while replying to Sona. No, not yet at autarky. He wasn't yet at autarky, as in the past days. One authority was coming infinitely close. Within his first Mundi of power, Quintessence was currently reigning supreme as it swallowed up the authority flowing from the Duru of autarky. But it was not there yet. It didn't grant Noah a thorough usage and understanding of autarky. Otherwise, would his battle against everyone here remain unknown to who the victor may be? Again, boom! The figure of the Sanctus Autarch was disrespectfully knocked back with a slap of Noah's colorless wings that were akin to deadly blades of existence, the battle continuing once more. Time continued to pass just like this. High ascendant existential engine of cultivation beat constantly with every passing second and afforded him even grander waves of progression, and the Duru of autarky remained open for his first Mundi of power of the Atlas of existence to draw in more and more strength. It was a constant positive feedback loop as his ascent only seemed to be increasing. More days continued to pass like this. It was the longest usage of time Noah had ever taken recently without warring or conflict. But he knew that it would soon come to an end. Days later, in the desecrated existential Chronos domain, Noah's ascendant existential extremity clone of Quintessence was sitting in a meditative position while surrounded by absolutely no glows of authority, his figure seeming like a normal entity without even an ounce of matter. Yet a moment later, dull, colorless wings behind his back flickered with activity, Noah's eyes rising as ahead of him, a scene that caused his eyes to shine bright as inside of him. You could see in fiery red skies of the Var El Eonic Omniverse record, there were three figures blazing with their own unique brilliance of existence. One was an entity he had come across before, with pointed ears and blazing wings of light. It was none other than the phasing of Queen. Legions of fey-burned existences stretched out behind her as she stood in the skies they had first fought on days ago. Beside her, an entity with the features of a verdant gold-winged goat could be seen. Green wings of life stretching out behind them, along with an expanse of legions ready to be deployed, their expression bright and full of optimism. The Satyris Nymph. Then, there was the much larger entity shining with golden, bejeweled brilliance. No legions followed him. Nothing stood behind him apart from a dark gold radiance, his wings seemingly to be made out of trillions of golden suns. This was the sun-winged Leprechaunus. Looking at him, Noah could feel the weavings of loot pulsing as he looked at these three beings closely, each with a different system of existence. Yet they came together as at this moment, they are searching. Chapter 3151, The Atlas of Existence. Three entities with different sources of existence came together for nothing else but a single purpose: himself. They wanted what autarchs could obtain a glimpse of before, but something they could no longer see right now: his base of existence. Since it took the center of the Atlas of existence, everything about it became veiled, and even the Sanctus Empress was no longer able to peer through it unless they were fused. The Facinged Queen had taken the path of seeking aid with the other omniversal Ankyras of this Eonic Omniverse record, and now they all sought Noah's face that was the size of a grain of sand in a small corner of the Var El Eonic Omniverse record. His Invictus Dominium buzzing and showing him the scene of these autarchs meant that they would soon find him, and he had to prepare. His eyes were filled with many thoughts as his distinctions as the Weaver had risen, and his eyes saw things very differently from others. What he saw was a breakdown of data and weavings coming together. and he could at this moment see the weavings of the very source of existence of these beings. How different were their weavings compared to each other and him? Their systems of existence. Noah felt like he could almost peer at them fully. The Phasingid Queen. Your system isn't sufficiently different to deserve its own spot in the atlas of existence. His gaze was a pondering one as he stroked his chin while gazing at the trio. His face showed immeasurable calmness, as if everything was under his grasp. And as the one with the atlas of existence, he was truly given this astounding sense of confidence. Not arrogance, not pride, but a sensation as if he could have everything under control for the vast variety of existence if he really put his mind to it. This was the effect of merely having the atlas of existence, as its shocking potential and sheer existence alone was still something that even Noah felt like he didn't fully grasp. And you, his gaze turned towards the massive figure of the sun-winged leprechauness. Overflowing with the light of Lut, the system of existence you cultivate is also not sufficiently different. Everything he was seeing so far indicated either low complexity or simply not too different from the conceptual system of existence. The only caveat of the system of existence of these beings was how focused and singular they were in themselves. The Phasingid Queen and her focus on the mind, the sun-winged leprechauness and his focus on wealth as the source of power, and lastly, the satirist nymph who focused on vitality and life. None of you are sufficiently different enough. Noah shook his head with gradually blazing eyes as he rose from his seated position. He remembered the visions that the glimpse of Invictus Maximus had given. The 9 portals of light that seemed to be reflections of the Atlas of existence, but each of them were leading to different Eonic Omniverse records. He was only within the Var-El Eonic Omniverse record that he reached with the aid of Luna, which he had now incorporated into the first Mundi of power within his Atlas of existence, and better understood how it and the weavings of the protagonist allowed him to enter this Eonic Omniverse record. But this was merely just that, a single Eonic Omniverse record. I will not allow it to take too much of my attention. His eyes buzzed with a profound sense of confidence as his ascendant existential extremity form of quintessence rose. Quintessence. Days had passed since he began and continued sparring with his people, and it could still not be considered to have arrived at the point where it could freely generate and utilize autarchical authority. One of the reasons why, even though quintessence was at the forefront in autarky but had yet to achieve it, were the Invictus Dominion wings. Noah was urging them towards what he had only caught a glimpse of before, Invictus Maximus. His wings were focused on the breakdown of idea and the autarchical omniversal authority it led to. Its 4 components being focused on as, apart from efficiency, Noah had been grasping and utilizing the other 3 components as well. This, and his atlas of existence, gave him an utterly profound sense of confidence. So much so that at this moment, let me have a taste of your sources of existence. Boom! He only spoke while gazing at the illusory screen showing the 3 omniversal Ankyras of this Eonic Omniverse record. As in the next instant, his figure turned into a streak of light that disappeared into this illusory screen. He didn't tell any of his people. He didn't even alert the Sanctus Autarch, who was refining her own authority and getting ready for a major battle. He only disappeared by himself, as when Noah was given plenty of time, utterly disastrous things could occur. In the area where the last battle had occurred between Noah's forces and the Faburned existences. This guy is playing hide-and-seek with us? The Var-El Eonic Omniverse record is not that big. We could cover every single corner in under a day. I have to say, I'm a bit let down. The voice of the sun-winged leprechaunus released a vibrant echo in the surroundings, his pressure alone causing the legions of the Phasingid Queen and satirist nymph to feel suffocated. Near him, the Phasingid Queen seemed to be pondering, while the satirist nymph, with an anatomy that seemed to be a mixture of a goat and plants, closed their eyes, the vibrant luster of life buzzing from them. Their eyes were filled with murky green galaxies as their intent weaved out at this moment. If that is what we must do, I must apologize for letting you down. The intent of the satirist nymph never finished. An audible voice echoed out in front of them that caused its intent to cease. It its figure erupting with heavenly authority as it looked ahead. Ho! The sun-winged leprechauness and the facing queen were the same as the legions behind them also went on high alert. They had to. The voice had come from an entity none of their senses caught, where they hadn't sensed even the fluctuation of mana or any other authority as shocking them. She was right in front of them. A devilishly handsome man in a colorless robe that had a white tinge to it, a halo of brilliant light above him, and ecstatic colorless wings on his back and feet. His gaze was immeasurably calm as he stared at three autarch equivalent existences. And this wasn't to mention the autarch equivalent Faeburned leading the legions of the Phasing Queen, and another autarch equivalent nymph under the banner of the satirist nymph. None had caught the visage of the man before he spoke. And such a thing was extremely terrifying. Chapter 3152, Systems of Existence, 1. He appeared before them, and yet they did not sense him until he spoke. The massive visage of the sun-winged leprechauness squinted its eyes as it spoke while its body began to burn with dark gold radiance. This is him. Why can we not see anything? Even as he spoke, his radiance was already spreading out across the surroundings as he asked a critical question to the Phasing Queen. She had stated days ago that the intruder of this eonic omniverse record has a unique face of existence, unblemished and untouched as they could all see it with but a glimpse. So why was it that right now they saw nothing on this man? Hell, they couldn't even sense any glimmer of authority on him. The Phasing Queen was stern as her authority also erupted while she replied. This is him. He must have figured out how to hide it. Affirmation was given, and as soon as that was there. All right. That was all that the sun-winged leprechauness and satirist knew. But before they could fully exert their authority, let's not get too excited. Noah's voice arose as with his raised hand, he snapped his finger. Existence distorted. His wings expanded and instantly overshadowed everything, as in front of the eyes of legions of millions of Faeburned existences and satirist existences, Noah's figure and the three terrifying autarchs of their source of existence disappeared. Everybody froze and looked around, the remaining commanders gazing at each other in shock and stupid as they didn't know how to proceed. Search for the Queen. Only shouts began along a mad scramble as nobody truly knew what had occurred except this. The existence-based ascendancy skill first learned with Power H's causality penitentiary. Noah had days to understand and mess around with his atlas of existence. One of the utilizations of this terrifying construct was the design and usage of all the authorities contained within the first unit of power. Even closer, Noah had placed his focus on Adia and its connection to an autarchical omniversal authority. The greater omniversal authority of Atia was an excidere omniversal intersect that made up an intricate part of an encompassing autarchical omniversal authority. And Noah had been putting his existence through it, and the usage of its four components to finally mobilize the weavings of this unknown autarchical omniversal authority. That, paired with everything within Noah's system of existence, was what powered up the existence-based ascendancy skill of the first Mundi of Power Atia's causality penitentiary. At its basis were the four components of Atia. Under the component of formal, the form of the causality penitentiary is designed to be an endlessly distorting loop that will not have an entry or exit. Under the component of material, the materials making up the distorting loop of the causality penitentiary will include the authorities in the first Mundi of power. Under the component of efficiency, you have been determined to be the efficient or the moving cause of Atia's causality penitentiary, with your actions controlling the pace and acting as the agent of all changes within it. Under the component of final, the final cause of Atia's causality penitentiary has been determined to be your victory. The components of Atia were hard to grasp, as even for the last and slightly simpler component of final, it related to the end or purpose of a change or an event. An example of a final or purpose of a seed was to be a plant. In Noah's case, the final cause of Adia's causality penitentiary was his victory. The efficiency or efficient cause of a pill is the alchemist that made it. Noah was the efficient cause of the current prison he set up, as truly the complexities of Atia were something else. H's causality penitentiary was unique and filled with wonders. Existing in its own space of causality, three autark equivalent existences were the first ones to find themselves in this space. And what they saw was utterly astounding. They saw the massive outline of an hourglass at the very center. Its outline shattered as purple sand was leaking out of it and swirling into a storm around it. Hazy purple and gold radiance swirled all around as in the surroundings. There were dangling chains that at the very end of this domain that had metallic circular purple planes of existence. One chain moving with its circular plane to hit the next one in front of it as this one moved to hit the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Dong, dong, dong! The swinging balls hitting each other one after another seemed to speak to cause and effect, with booming sounds echoing out every time they smashed into each other. When one tried to look further past these metallic planes of existence of chains, shattered glimmers of infinity symbols could be seen along with white gold pillars emanating embers of lumen, with space constantly distorting into a loop around them, as getting out of this place was nigh impossible. I wanted us to have a little privacy with no interruptions. I wanted to really understand you all. The voice of the man who had brought them here rang out as his feet were dangling from the very precipice of the cracked hourglass, with his figure being situated atop it with calmness as he stared at the rising auras of three terrifying, artificial omniversal Ankyras. His colorless wings vibrated behind him as they seemed to be getting tremendous feedback from Ia's causality penitentiary. His whole appearance seemed to be one of profound mystery. The sun-winged leprechaunus looked towards him as his face became etched with a leery smile. What's with all this mysterious bullshit and facade? Hey little guy, Missy here said you have an unblemished base of existence that I could get my hands on, but I don't see anything from here. Do you really have it? Because otherwise, I won't waste my time here. Oh? Noah raised his brows as he looked between the calculating phasing between the sun-winged leprechaunus as well as the silent satirist nymph as his chest glowed brightly. Could she have been talking about this? A smidgen of the brilliance of his atlas of existence flashed, a mere glimmer of what lay at its very center. And just this alone, boom! This alone caused an eruption of opulentia authority as the massive figure of the sun-winged leprechaunus instantly tore across the weavings of Aetia's causality penitentiary to appear before Noah, or at least he believed to have done so. But the weavings of cause and effect were not so simple within Aetia's causality penitentiary. Chapter 3153, Systems of Existence. 2. The figure of the sun-winged leprechaunus surged towards Noah. His body radiated a dazzling bejeweled light as the rings on his nose and mouth knocked into each other with melody. But the moment where he should have smashed into Noah, boom! At that moment, no such reality played out. Aetia's causality penitentiary. Cause and effect were not under the rule of others within this penitentiary. The opposite of the choice one made would occur at times the times that the one utilizing the four components of Aetia deemed so. The sun-winged leprechaunus made the choice to surge towards Noah, and yet he appeared in the fringes of Aetia's causality penitentiary as his figure smashed into one of the constantly moving planes of existence on a chain. His head turned up as his eyes blazed with dark gold flames, looking at the distant Noah, who was gazing at him with curiosity as his voice echoed out. Opulentia. This is the authority you base your system of existence on. What did you utilize to link power to wealth? He asked such a question simply as he didn't even seem to be treating this as a battle, but more so a time to gather knowledge and information, as such a reality caused the sun-winged leprechaunus to vibrate like a tumultuous giant. The wings behind his back made of trillions of suns blazed as his voice echoed out. Goblin's lucky charm. The surroundings instantly exploded with a dark gold radiance as mountains of jewels and gold flashed into existence all around. Above the shattered hourglass Noah sat on, a massive illusory sack appeared and unfurled as countless gems and gold flowed from it, forming into serpentine snakes that surged towards Noah. They looked like endless rivers of meat ready to coil and overwhelm everything. The brilliance of the authority of Opulentia seething around them would rival any autarchical authority. And yet right before these snaking rivers of meat reached Noah, Boom! They disappeared and reappeared above the sun-winged leprechaunus as they smashed into themselves. A distortion of causality. The four components of Asia burned with full use as they pulled upon something that the greater omniversal authority of Asia sat at the center of, an autarkical omniversal authority that very few understood. Bombarded as the religious rituals of the summer exploded perhaps some tricks. Scholars revel in the concept-based systems of existence always have bags on the Why don't you rely on something real, something singular and unshakable in existence? Why don't you revel in infinite wealth? Ooh! An unfathomable surge of opulentia authority filled him as he smiled with a chilling light. With enough wealth, any and all conceptual tricks can be bypassed. His body shone with a dark gold crystalline luster, as if it was made up of pure diamonds. His whole existence being supported by droves of endless wealth, as he instantly appeared before Noah, his hand surging forward and sinking into Noah's chest. The dazzling, innate, infinite, quintessential bloodline halo of lumen above did not even do anything, as with a crazed light, the sun-winged leprechaunus pushed his hand deeper into Noah's chest, as if he were seeking to grasp the base of existence he had only gotten a glimpse of. Interesting. Noah's expression didn't change as he actually used his hands to grasp onto the arm of the sun-winged leprechaunus, his fingers shooting out a colorless light of pathogenicity into them. As it was only in this instant did the sun-winged leprechaunus realize that even though he pierced Noah's chest, it was his own chest that was punctured wide open and bleeding gold jewels. Causality damaged reflection. Noah's Invictus Dominium wings buzzed as they moved and expanded, coming forward to enclose him and the sun-winged leprechaunus in close proximity to each other as the light of Lut shone within his eyes. The sun-winged leprechaunus instantly felt his vast reserves of opulentia authority tingling as he woke from his stupor and roared out, "This motherfucker has all the tricks. Are you all just gonna sit there and watch?" The three of them came together, as why the hell was he attacking alone? The facinged queen and the satirist nymph that had been preparing and trying to grasp how the surrounding existence worked finally moved at this moment. At the same time, Noah's eyes of Diorkness blinked. And all light instantly became drawn into them, even the unfathomably grand dark gold light of opulentia. I see. Noah's voice emanated our right after as around him, all devoured light began to be expressed by nothing else other than the light of Lut. You irreversibly have your existence linked to the units of wealth within your soul. The more you accumulate, allowing you to inflate your existence so much to the extent that you reached autarky. What? He spoke calmly, while the sun-winged leprechaunus sank his hand even deeper into Noah's chest, ignoring the damage to his own as he believed opulentia would be victorious. His blazing eyes returned their heavy dark gold brilliance as he stared angrily at the entity before him. And Noah gazed back with calmness as he asked in a pondering manner, "This system of existence is straightforward and powerful, but what would happen to you if there was ever something or someone who could take away your wealth? One wouldn't even have to directly attack you." The words caused the eyes of the sun-winged leprechaunus to constrict into fine points. The countless trillions of suns on his wings blared as at this point, it was too late. The brilliance of Lut around Noah moved as after devouring a portion of opulentia with the eyes of Diorkness, Noah followed their weavings through the strands of pathogenicity he had released to locate the boundless mountains of wealth within the sun-winged leprechaunus. And he then had Lut wrap around these mountains of wealth for himself. Boom! A pillar of dark gold mass erupted as from the orifices of the sun-winged leprechaunus, gems and rivers of gold ceaselessly flowed as, shockingly, his authority of opulentia began to drastically reduce. The incoming figures of the phasingid queen and satirist nymph paused at such a scene. Chapter 3154, Systems of Existence. The phasingid queen and satirist nymph only paused slightly before they surged forward with interminable and serious intent. They had to in order to ensure their success. But what was this? Why was he so much more powerful than mere days ago? The soul of the facing-it queen buzzed as she exerted everything she had to change the current weavings of existence to her wishes. And the satirist nymph beside her, vitalistic totem symphony, they uttered out calmly as from all around, massive verdant black totems burning with flames of life bloomed, their sheer presence beginning to distort existence and reality itself as they pressed from all around. Yet Noah did not gaze at them just yet. He stared at the rough visage of the sun-winged leprechauness, who was gushing out mountains of loot from all orifices, as in between all of this existence locked his eyes onto him as his wings expanded. The trillions of suns within them flared. "You motherfucker! I have reserves of wealth you cannot even imagine." Boom! His wings exploded. Trillions of suns exploded. From them, an inviolable authority erupted that opposed anything that wasn't an overabundance of wealth. The sheer accumulation of this terrifying entity erupting on both himself and Noah, making multiple choices all at once to cover many possible causalities. Boom! It causes the visage of Noah to finally be pushed back as monetary after the authorities of all autarchs here came on all sides for him. The scene was glorious to see as from where Noah stood before, the figure of the sun-winged leprechauness could be seen breathing ruggedly, his chest heaving up and down as on his face. His golden rings around his mouth and nose were shattered. Trillions of golden suns surrounded him like twinkling stars, each one seemingly holding boundless wealth and treasures. But even now, through his mouth, nose, ears, and other places, gems and gold continued to leak out like rivers of brilliance as his aura continued to diminish. Dum, dum, dum! Booming drums that seemed to usher in glory and war rang out as in front of the eyes of the leader of existence, many things showed themselves. The source of existence of the sun-winged leprechauness has been analyzed thoroughly. By having focus points of existence within the soul, his entire physiology was augmented to fuse and correlate his entire existence with the amount of wealth placed within these focus points of existence. He could see it. The trillions of suns now circling the sun-winged leprechauness. Other small points of singularities within his existence. Focus points. It was something akin to a bird having wings that humans didn't have. Akin to one animal having an entirely different organ compared to another. This was something that the sun-winged leprechauness had, but Noah didn't. But of course, such a thing was something Noah could always change. His gaze became piercing as he looked at the ragged figure of the sun-winged leprechauness that was trying to stop the flow of his wealth as he spoke. Focus points of existence, yes? Let's see what happens if I have the same thing. His words caused the massive visage surrounded by focus points of existence that shone with dark gold radiance to tremble in shock, as if Noah should have never found out about it, and furthermore, he couldn't be someone who could confidently say he could have the same thing. Yet Noah uttered such daring words while the barrage of terrifying authorities of the Phasingid Queen and the satirist nymph thundered down, his eyes not even turning to them as he pointed his hand towards his body, his fingers becoming unfathomably sharp as they pierced into his existence. Squelch! The pain should have been something that no ordinary existence could withstand. But Noah didn't even bat an eye as a part of his existence became altered. A portion of your existence is being altered to form focus points of existence. Based on the physiology of the sun-winged leprechauness, the focus points of existence are being designed in a quintessential fashion, the intricate hands of the weaver of existence painting over them. The weaver of existence designs the focus points of existence to be inexplicably and irreversibly linked to the weavings of Lut, connecting this to all things defined as the wealth of Noah Osmont. The definition of wealth is made clear. His existence buzzed. At this moment, the atlas of existence within him reacted as the 9 circles rotated with splendor. The weavings of a new system of existence have been discerned. The system of existence of opulentia has been defined, and its parameters have been fully set. The system of existence of opulentia is not sufficiently different from the weavings of your current system to be allocated to a different mundi of power. The system of existence of opulentia is being assimilated into the first mundi of power. His existence blared, past the pain, past the heavy weavings of an entirely new source of existence being built. Something new bloomed at this time. Within his existence, countless points of light formed that were patently filled with the glimmer of loot. This authority linked to everything within and under Noah at this moment. Loot has been fully linked to the quintessential focus points of existence. A correlation between what has been defined as your wealth and the weavings of loot and your existence has been established. Should you lose your wealth, you will lose your power. Brilliance unfurled. And from this moment on, the weavings of the system of existence of opulentia have been fully assimilated. Your existence will now acclimate to express its correlation with the amount of wealth you have accumulated. A terrifying reality bloomed. Even though the power of multiple autarchical equivalent authorities surged towards him from all directions, Noah's body, which had been still this whole time, began to give off boundless light as his aura rose towards horrific levels. Noah's wealth. Just how much did he have, and what exactly fell under the definition of wealth? Chapter 3155, Systems of Existence. Wealth. The possession of something valuable. Something considered to be a treasure, or truly, the accumulation of what is considered a limited resource. Could such a thing be subjective from one person to another? It was hard to say, but wealth, true wealth, was something that some people would never experience in their entire lives, while others held it on a daily basis. When it came to Noah's wealth, among your abundance of wealth, the infinite existential omniversal seed is considered at the forefront. A myriad of things within the infinite existential omniversal seed are considered part of your wealth, including but not limited to quintessential fruits of existence, quintessential legions, quintessential armament, and countless more natural treasures. Ruination is part of your wealth. Your concepts exceeding many others are part of your wealth. Unfathomable atlas of existence within you is part of your wealth. The boom, dozens of prompts crashed down as within the first Monday of power, utter craziness unfolded. Noah's existence was already powerful. He was already receiving steady streams of autarchical authority from the Duru of autarky. His existence seemed to be dancing with this stage, as what would happen when all of his wealth became correlated with his strength. Of course, the downside was that if ever he lost his wealth, he would also lose his power. But when would such a thing happen? When would he lose the infinite existential omniversal seed, whose mere value was something barely being decided right now? Unless someone as obscene as him appeared and did what he did to the sun-winged leprechauness, such a thing wasn't even a possibility. Boom! His existence was experiencing booms of expansions and elevations across every possible aspect, with everything within him cheering on the ongoing process as his wings. Oh, his wings. His wings stretched out with unfathomable brilliance as his heart, eyes, and lungs radiated an omniversal brilliance. You are approaching the first distinguished rank in relation to the Atlas of existence. You have arrived in the laborer strata of the Atlas of existence. He never held a true distinction in comparison to others, as after the Invictus stage, there was only the Atlas of existence. At this moment, as he assimilated the system of existence of opulentia, he truly stepped with a rank that had a distinction, as when it came to the Atlas of existence, he was a laborer. A fucking laborer? Noah's existence understood that this distinction came as a result of his own weaving and understanding of the Atlas of existence, with its true meaning flowing into his mind as truly he was in the ranks of doing work for his Atlas of existence. As a laborer, he had to search and grasp a myriad number of systems of existence out there, and then introduce them into his Atlas of existence to see whether they would be distinguished enough to even deserve their own Mundi of power, or whether they would be assimilated into his already existing system of existence. Truly, he was a laborer at this moment, and likely would remain so until he began to develop the Atlas of existence and have the other Mundis of power contain their own systems of existence. After that, who even knew what the next stage was? The authority of the laborer required to work towards the completion of the Atlas of existence has begun to be generated within the first Mundi of power. Not autarchical, an authority of entirely different standing came out of the first Mundi of power, as truly, Noah felt like he had to grant it another name. The authority of the laborer of the Atlas of existence just didn't have that ring to it. Oh, Noah breathed out as a colorless wind erupted to turn everything wild, any ounce of authority he was releasing due to his advancement disappearing as only his figure remained floating in the skies of Aetia's causality penitentiary. And yet, in the surroundings, the totems of the satirist nymph and the heavy weight of the authority of the Phasengid queen faded along with the appearance of this colorless wind, as if it disabled and cleared all of these coming authorities with its mere passage. The eyes of the autarch equivalent existences blazed as while Noah felt the changes of his existence. While he felt the blooming authority of the laborer, he spoke towards the shocked figure of the sun-winged leprechaun. What do you know about wealth? The moment he finished speaking, his figure had maddeningly already appeared beside the sun-winged leprechaunus as he pinched on the orifice of his right ear. A sea of loot light gushing out thereafter as the leprechaunus smashed his hand sideways while moving back.
Oh!
He released a guttural bellow as the pace of his own wealth leaving him increased, and he saw that shockingly, it was all flowing towards a single man at this moment. A man that looked at him with a calm smile as he stated, "One man's loss is another man's gain. Your wealth was never meant to stay with you." Rivers of gold, armaments, herbs, and gems gushed out as once more the sun-winged leprechaunus bellowed out. I ask again, are you fuckers just going to stand there? Attack this fucking monster, now! He seemed to be scrambling, and rightfully so, as the authority of opulentia around him had drastically reduced and was only decreasing. It was to the extent that, I do not think you can even defend against me at this moment. His voice rang out again, 8 beside the visage of the sun-winged leprechaunus. He didn't even speak until he spoke, Noah's hand reaching out and coming to tap on his forehead as there was no weavings of defenses that Drew able to stop him. Whap! The figure of the sun-winged leprechaunus warped in and out of existence multiple times to pull away, his gaze ashen as he appeared behind the Phasengid queen, seeking to utilize her as a method of defense if he had to. But the distant Noah only smiled and nodded at this. Since you cannot even defend against me, I guess it is time for you to have your fatality. Don't struggle too much and go out with a bang. Aetia's causality penitentiary pulsed. From within Noah, a new authority arose as he passed judgment on an autarchical equivalent entity. Chapter 3156, Systems of Existence 5, The Authority of the Laborer of the Atlas of Existence. It was unique in nature as Noah saw autarchical authority melding with it at the depths of his existence. The duru of autarky flung wide open as a colorless authority constantly surged from it. The designation remained colorless, but the authority felt thicker and more robust. It felt heavier and even more immovable in nature, as if normal autarchical authority could not compare. As it gathered within his existence, the trillions of focus points of existence on the sun-winged leprechaunus blared as they seemed to sense the perilous situation. The expression of this entity maddening as he roared out while gathering all remaining authority of opulentia. Who do you think you are? Boom! Do you know who I am? What I've done? Do you think you could possibly silence me? Take my wealth? Rubbish! Woof! Like a blinking star at the end of its path, his existence blared with the brightest light it had flourished with than any other time in his life as he was directing it all towards Noah. Noah, who gazed at this scene while grasping a few tendrils of the new authority of the laborer, his existence directing it towards causality and loot while looking at the sun-winged leprechaunus. For your final moments, you can go out with an overabundance of wealth. His voice retained its calmness as carrying a hint of solemnity, he spoke out. Laborer's fatality opulentia. Whom? A flash of colorless and gold brilliance unfurled. The gaze of the sun-winged leprechaunus changed as he instantly raised his hands up, finding an unfathomably large and heavy stone of dark gold wealth appearing above his figure as if it were trying to crush him. Below his feet, a river of gold gems and armaments bloomed as it seemed like a flat disc anchoring him where he stood, his figure not moving down even an inch, while the dark gold stone made of unknown waves of authority pressed down to crush him. He bellowed out with maddened fervor as the pierced rings and gems on his hands ripped and shattered at the sheer weight, his hands instantly caving in as the stone became supported on his back. A stone of infinite wealth crashed down, its core supported by an authority distinct from autarky, and yet carrying a sense of undeniable oppression. Crack! The weight of the massive stone of wealth cracked and splintered not just his body, but his existence itself. Within it, strands of the will of the sun-winged leprechaunus flowed in as he sensed the wealth contained within. This, a different type of wealth. He saw a glimpse of the wealth being used to crash his existence, as within it. He saw the outline of an utterly glorious seed. Within it, boundless wealth was contained. Ah! Was that wealth? Was that crack? His back supporting the weight of the massive stone of wealth was broken as the rest of his body followed. His eyes popping out of their sockets as this time, he used the last shreds of his authority to direct his loose pupils to gaze at his compatriots. You dumb fuckers just stood there until the very end? Stupid, dumb, mother... Boom! Like an unstoppable meteor, the massive stone pressed down entirely as the visage of the sun-winged leprechaunus became crushed under it. The gold sea below his feet becoming painted with crimson gold blood. A gush of the authority of opulentia spread out amidst such a devastating scene. Loved by wealth and living his whole life with the standing and accumulation of wealth, the sun-winged leprechaunus was ultimately given a fatality of wealth, crushed under the sheer weight of wealth that he couldn't even comprehend. My goodness. Noah's voice echoed out amidst such a terrifying moment of reality, his hand tapping out as the remnant weavings of the sun-winged leprechaunus gathered together to form a single point of singularity that came towards him. He grasped and looked at it closely while his voice continued to ring out. Now, that was the most powerful one among you, and he has met such a fate. I wonder, what will the two of you do now? Are your sources of existence sufficiently interesting enough for what is to come? The facing-jed queen and the satirist nymph had immeasurably somber expressions as their authorities burned like a tide. While waiting for their answer, Noah gazed at the singularity within his hands. The seed of existence, a seed containing the very essence of existence that has been refined to the utmost. With it, an existence with a sufficiently strong soul could refine it to take them towards the distinction of autarky, a ridiculously simple definition. But it was an insane one, as it stated one could go to the stage of autarky by assimilating this seed of existence. What was that? What was autarky? Could one reach it so simply as they wished? Now, under Noah's banner, one could. It was a ridiculous reality as Noah put away the seed of existence while turning to look at the facing-jed queen and the satirist nymph, who were now inches from each other, standing together protectively, as their authorities burned in a way it had never burned before. At such a time, the facing-jed queen opened her pink lips while emanating boundless charm. We were wrong. She looked like a damsel admitting her mistakes, like a delicate flower surrounded by colorless and crimson radiance who needed to be carefully cradled and forgiven. We should not have coveted something we did not understand, and for doing so, I will personally pay the price with my body. You can do with it anything you will. In an utterly mesmerizing tone, the facing-jed queen uttered this while showing a maiden filled with defeat who only wanted her conqueror to take her. Noah nodded towards this being as her eyes lit up. Using your authority of Destro-y-her, even now, you are right. I will do anything I wish with your body. His words caused the eyes of the facing-jed queen to brighten up as she saw an ounce of possibility. A possibility that was shattered within the next moment as Noah continued. Among the things I wish to do, granting you death is one of them. Wah! A flicker of brilliance unfurled, and a newly emerging authority began to be tested even more as Noah was clearing up the artificial omniversal ankyras of the Var-El Ionic Omniverse record by himself. Chapter 3157, Systems of Existence, Sex. Laborer. Noah uttered these words with a smile, as truly it didn't fit his grand image to be called this. And yet at the same time, the Atlas of Existence was just that terrifying, as its starting stage was a laborer. The distinction of this authority wasn't being uttered by his ascendant existential extremity clone of quintessence that was within Asia's causality penitentiary with the remaining two artificial omniversal ankyras, but it was his ascendant existential extremity clone of the protagonist who was still within the infinite existential omniversal seed. A body of his that at this moment flickered, crossing the vast stretches of the infinite existential omniversal seed, to arrive at an area with constantly spinning miniature galaxies that made it look like swirling stars were moving, with the figures of the prominent inhabitants of the infinite existential omniversal seed currently floating in this region with activity. The son of Osmont could be seen along with many of his usual compatriots, with even Hyperion and the Enders of Extremity participating, as there were many in all shapes and sizes. A bustle of conversations echoed out along with cheers as they all floated in between swirling miniature galaxies, while looking at a Colosseum-style architecture the size of hundreds of worlds. The figures of Dr. Hall and Erickson were about to clash within them, as a competitive spirit buzzed all around. On one side of the stage, Erickson grasped two flippers in his hand as he smacked them together with a melody while speaking. "I never thought I'd be whooping a priest today. I'll apologize in advance." His words drew smiles and laughter from those watching, as opposite him, Dr. Hall smiled while shaking his head. "Please call me the doctor, and today I didn't think I'd be breaking an oath." Wow! The friendly banter exchanged only roused the competitive spirit as those watching cheered. But at this time, whap! An aura made itself apparent. It was so heavy and stifling that it nearly took the breath of all those here away, their figures turning towards a certain direction where they saw Noah's ascendant existential extremity clone of the protagonist. The moment all eyes were on him, he spoke. "The enemy legions have gathered for a fight. For those ready, assemble to enter the battlefield." Along with his words, a massive colorless bluish rift erupted behind him, causing all forces to become alert and pulse with power. Not even a second later, all quintessential legions began to buzz and gather in an orderly fashion. Those of Lumen, those of illusory weavings, those of automaton, those being led by quintessential commanders. While they all gathered, the figure of the Sanctus Empress also flashed to appear beside Noah as she asked sternly, "Are all three together with their commanders? That would be multiple autarchs for us to handle." She looked and was genuinely worried. The three artificial omniversal Ankyras were not alone, as the phasing queen alone had another autarch-level entity amongst her most powerful commanders. How could they face all of them together when she was the only autarch here? Yet towards her worry and concern, Noah only waved his hands dismissively. "No need to worry about any of that. Just enter and have fun with it. As for the number of autarchs, Henry, come." Noah's gaze moved around and came to lock onto one figure that was looking at him with shining eyes, beckoning towards him as Henry appeared an instant later. Noah looked at his growing son as he waved his hands to reveal a dazzling dark-colored seed. A seed of existence. A seed that would take one towards autarky in a short moment. It floated towards Henry under Noah's will, and before Henry could even find out what it was for, it sank into his chest. Thereafter, his body splendorously buzzed before it began to expand and contract with a colorless radiance. He looked towards his father in shock as all he received was a nod while he pointed to the rift behind him. "Lead the quintessential legions against the authority of autarky." There were many questions everyone wanted to ask. They were just leaving to go face the terrifying legions as they were. Was there a plan? How would... There were many questions, but the son of Osmont didn't ask any, as he only nodded, feeling his existence beginning to change in advance as his blue-gold hair began to gain a colorless brilliance. "Forward!" His voice was filled with immutable power as dense legions of thousands of prime entities lined up behind him. With a glimmer of light, they went towards the rift, as beside Noah's figure, the Sanctus Empress was incredulous and wanted to ask questions, but Noah simply smiled while motioning for her to follow him. Sona had appeared beside them along with the entourage of Barbatos, Adelaide, and others, all of them shifting across space to appear in the crimson skies that held the scattered legions of the Facingid Queen and the Satyrs. The auras of two prominent autarch equivalent existences could be felt at the forefront of the legion, with a few others barely reaching this stage, as both sides came to look at each other. The Sanctus Empress blinked as she gazed all around and saw no signs of the Phasingid Queen or any other terrifying entity. Where are the enemy leaders? a baffling question, one that Noah replied simply while a shimmering throne appeared behind him, as if he would only sit down and watch the fruits of his labor for the battle to come. Enemy leaders have been taken care of, and what remains is a bit of cleanup. A ridiculous reality unfolded as others accepted it easily, but of the most powerful beings within Noah's side who truly understood autarky, the Sanctus Empress was the only one who froze at this reality, as it simply couldn't be believed. But to the Weaver of Existence, it did not matter. He watched his son take center stage as a terrifying aura began to leap from him, pillars of destiny beginning to crash down, along with colorless tendrils of light. He watched his son undergo a change while within his own body. He felt the newly emerging authority of the laborer accumulate and erupt towards the Duru of autarky brazenly, shattering it into pieces and creating a massive wormhole, as it no longer just took the flow of oncoming autarkical authority. At this moment, it went deeper in as with the guidance of Aitia and its unique standing as intersect, this brazen authority seemed to be going towards autarkical omniversal authority to stare at them straight on. Chapter 3158, The Closure of Varel 1. Across the Duru of autarky, colorless seas of authority flowed as at this moment. A heavy tendril of the authority of the laborer of the Atlas of Existence coursed through it. It seemed like an unstoppable force, as while it did so, many extremely pristine wills came to focus on it from afar. And yet its path continued further in, as if it had a goal, as if it had a purpose that it would achieve no matter what. Within Adia's causality penitentiary, Noah followed this tendril of the authority of the laborer, as currently he sat on the ripped wings of the Phesingid queen, while gripping in his hands another seed of existence. A seed of existence belonging to none other than the satirist nymph, as it pulsed with a verdant, colorless brilliance. The sun-winged leprechauness was the most powerful among the three artificial omniversal Ankyras, as by the time Noah took care of it and proceeded to the Phasingid queen and the satirist nymph, everything was already decided. The inclusion of the system of existence of opulentia and the subsequent advancement into the distinction of the laborer of the Atlas of Existence was just that heavy. The changes it was causing to Noah were so thorough that others could not even imagine. Changes like, your distinctions as the Weaver of Existence and Extremity have risen from the stage of Elder Weaver and into the stage of Ancient Weaver. The Ancient Weaver was the last determined distinction, but the path has been further expanded by you. Further ahead, the distinction of the Exiled Weaver of Existence and the Exiled Weaver of Extremity wait for your brilliance. The authority of the laborer of the Atlas of Existence was so potent that his distinction jumped forward right away. And they didn't stop there, as within him, his very blood churned and exploded with brilliance as they took another step forward. Your existential omniversal Lumen Emperor lineage has attained the distinction of an autarkical existential omniversal lineage. Among your progeny, there lies a clear path towards autarky. Among your lineage, the doors to the influence of greater omniversal authorities are fully open. To you, the influence of autarkical omniversal authorities has opened as you can burn a portion of your lineage to gain the recognition of such an authority. Advance, advance, and advance even more. This was what Noah felt like his existence was doing as right now. He felt like he was on fire. An endless fire of advancement that kindled his existence ceaselessly. And in the midst of it all, blood leaked from the lips of the Phasingid queen as her crimson eyes turned towards Noah, sitting above her thoughtfully. Her power was bound and restricted, with the authority of Illudair lying half-shattered and broken at the center of her existence, as she would never be able to weave intricate illusions and wishes of her existence. In such a state, she looked at Noah and spoke with a maddened gleam in her eyes. "You talk a great deal about choices, about causality. You do not even know what is about to happen once you kill all of us as your choice. Once the artificial omniversal Ankyras of this eonic omniverse record are gone, you do not know. You do not know."
Why?
Noah gazed calmly at the entity below him. An entity who had nothing to lose, as even now, Noah knew what she was about to say was the truth. "You will alert them, the ones who put us here in the first place, against them, oh man. I wish I could be there to witness your future. I fucking wish. You see, they are not like you and I. They don't look at existence for themselves, but seek and have control over all the myriad of existence out there. No matter how much you climb up, you can never match them. You can never. You will feel the same despair we felt. You will likely come to be put in a similar omniverse record if they don't even kill you. No, their cruelty extends past that. Honorable they are, kind they are, protectors they are. The protectors of existence. Haha, I truly wish I could be there when you come across them and realize just how useless everything you're doing is. She didn't bother to keep her existence intact any longer. It began to crumble as alongside it. So would the Var-El-Ionic Omniverse. Noah felt the existence of this entity dispersing and being collected into a seed, as in her last moments, she was rueful. I am the queen of a lineage surpassing many others across the weaving's existence when it comes to the mind and soul. And yet, what remains of me? Her last words. As she spoke them, her head twisted unnaturally as she broke her neck to fully gaze at Noah, who was sitting on her back. I had it all, with utmost belief that my glory would only continue in the future. Noah Osmont, is it? Do you think your glory will continue in the future? Do you think you are special, so special out of all other types of existences out there? Just how high is your hubris? Just how vast is your pride? Crack! Her existence splintered as her head rose up with a hazy, illusory light. This head coming to gaze right in front of Noah as the Phasingid Queen blinked with utmost calmness in death. I may be someone you forget quickly as you continue on from here, but remember my words. A time is coming for you in the future when the realization will hit. The realization that there are many others just like you. When that time comes, think of me, will you? Think of the woman you ended the dreams of as your own are coming to an end. To the very end. Her existence never let go of the authority of Destro-y-her. To the very end, she tried to leave behind words of truth, also paired with doubt and paranoia, to hinder Noah's path. But did they hold any falsehood within them? Her illusory brilliance faded with a smile soon after as her body scattered away, and within a moment, Noah was holding a crimson, colorless seed of existence in his other hand. Chapter 3159, The Closure of Var-El. There was an immense silence settling in. Adorned with his vibrant, colorless wings, Noah calmly floated near a shattered hourglass, massive circular planes of causality still knocking into each other within Asia's causality penitentiary, as he was the only one left. He held two seeds of existence in his hands as an array of prompts cascaded. All three artificial omniversal Ankyras of the Var-El-Ionic Omniverse record have perished. The Var-El-Ionic Omniverse record is not a very stable one. After the loss of all of its artificial omniversal Ankyras, there are no pathways for succession, and the whole Ionic Omniverse record will begin breaking down and closing 13. The amount of time left until the closure of the Var-El-Ionic Omniverse record was exactly the time that was left on the 30-day timer since they entered. Noah silently took such a reality in strides as in the depths of his existence. He did not yet touch the systems of existence of the Phasingid Queen and the Satirus Nymph. Both of them were weaker than the sun-winged Leprechauness for a reason, as their systems of existence were not as complex, with their similarity to Noah being something that could be assimilated to further enhance those aspects of himself, but likely not yield a result as tremendous as the system of existence of Opulentia. So he wasn't in a hurry as he felt the authority of the labor of the Atlas of Existence and what it sought to do. How it traversed across the Duru of autarky, ignoring the potent weavings and gazes of autarchical omniversal authorities that governed and were made up of many greater omniversal authorities, and continued traversing across the lines of the intersect that was Atia to finally arrive at a grand location. Surrounded by a purple sea of brilliance, tendrils of colorless light blowing all around, Noah's will could see a potent singularity that represented the very core weavings of Asia, and he could further see its four components within it. But at this moment, Adia was only one among multiple courses of elements making up an utter behemoth. The weavings of the autarchical omniversal authority of Adiologia that govern parts of your natal omniverse gaze at you with scrutiny. Your existence has a clear alignment and belonging to the omniverse that the autarchical omniversal authority of Adiologia accepts, but your existence is divergent from the sole belonging to him it has always observed within the omniverse. He was, of course, an entity of the natal omniverse that followed the system of existence of concepts. But something about him was changing that showed he was steering away, this being the atlas of existence. It was something that actually gave an autarchical omniversal authority a reason to pause. But the atlas of existence was not something so minor. Noah felt its 9 circles, its 9 Mondays of power, swirled within him madly as at this moment, as if were a coiled snake waiting to pounce. The heavy tendrils of the authority of the laborer erupted. They formed chains that sunk into the depths of multiple singularities, forming the autarchical omniversal authority of Adiologia, including the singularity of Asia, as these chains trembled with invincibility. The gaze and recognition of the autarchical omniversal authority of Adiologia has been bypassed. Through the authority of the laborer, the influence of a few 100 million existential extremity authorities making up an autarchical omniversal authority will flow through you constantly and without any cost. The authority of the laborer of the atlas of existence didn't ask to be recognized. It forcefully took its spot and pulled upon the authority of the autarchical omniversal authority constantly, an influx of colorless brilliance flowing back into Noah's first Monday of power at this moment. This was what happened inside of his existence. He clenched his fists. This was what he was looking for when he entered the Varelionic Omniverse record. He was looking for the tools to allow the protagonist to tip the scales of causality have been obtained. This whole time, the Deus Ex Machinas, the crazy workings of everything within Noah, the distortion of causality, it was all for the sake of tipping the scales in his favor. And at this moment, he truly gained the tools to do so. As while he looked at his hands and the power flowing through them, Aichia's causality penitentiary began to crumble around him. The ascendant existential extremity clone of quintessence faded, as more of Noah's will focused on the eyes of the ascendant existential extremity clone of the protagonist that was watching his son, and all others facing the remnant legions of the artificial omniversal Ankyras. At the center point of the battlefield, Noah saw his son, and he couldn't help but smile. There, he could see his son swirling with colorless gold autarchical authority as he faced the autarch equivalent commander leading the remaining legions of the fee-burned existences. And the sense of pride he had watching his son was overwhelming, seeing how grand the possibilities could be in such a short period of time. In another direction, the Sanctus Autarch could be seen dominating the autarch equivalent commander of the Satyrus existences, the victors of this battle having long been decided. But Noah looked past all of this. He looked at what lay ahead, the words of the Phasingid Queen. But more than this, it was the myriad of scattered records these beings carried that Noah had just begun to sift through as the ancient weaver of existence. Records of where they were before all of this, before they were in the Aeonic Omniverse record. The Phasingid Queen spoke of the powerful entities who put them here. The sun-winged Leprechaunus and Satyrus nymph knew of what happened to them in the past and how they arrived here. And yet as Noah sifted across the memories and records, none of it existed. No records of the terrifying entities they mentioned, of the protectors of existence. No records of anything but their own homes, their source of existence, and their lives. These were all Noah had to go on, as the words of the Phasingid Queen reverberated in his mind. And he then looked further ahead into the future, as his eyes became stern with decisiveness. One thing at a time, he breathed out while stretching his evolving existence, his eyes coming to full focus on what plagued him currently, what they would find outside their doors in 13 days after the closure of the Varel Eonic Omniverse record. The Devouring Worms. Chapter 3160, Momentary Peace, 1. The true enemy plaguing Noah had always been the Devouring Worms, these enemies being something that their system of existence was entirely ineffective against. And so he prepared for them. He pondered and planned, wanting to see just how the gains within the Varel Eonic Omniverse record and the advent of the Atlas of Existence would change things. Time unendingly continued to flow. Seconds turned into minutes. and minutes led into a single hour. An hour since Noah released his quintessential legions to clear the forces of the Phasingid Queen and the Satirus Nymph. It was an hour that was followed by a moment of silence. This was all that could be granted to those laid waste to and those who ultimately bent the knee. The visage of the Sanctus Autarch stared forth with shining eyes at this scene, her gaze eventually coming to land on Henry. Henry, who currently grasped a golden sword of destiny while his body crackled with the colorless brilliance of autarky. Was it always that easy? What could be attributed as real or not seemed to constantly change over the past days, and the being responsible for it all didn't even give her any pause, as his voice echoed out across the battle. A battle well fought, and now it is time to rest. Wow! The massive structure of the infinite existential omniversal seed appeared above them as things ended, this simply, the Sanctus Autarch warping to appear in front of Noah's ascendant existential extremity clone, protagonist, as she asked with somber eyes. You took care of the 3 Autarch equivalent leaders of these legions? You alone? She had to ask to make sure, and she received a smile and a nod along with her affirmation. They were merely shadows of their former selves after being locked in here for too long. Now, the true enemies to prepare against remain the devouring worms and the Imperium Autarch sitting above the Omniverse. The protagonist laid out what waited for them, as they simply had to accept the current reality. The Sanctus Autarch nodding, as even though she held many questions, she returned to the infinite existential omniversal seed, nonetheless for a moment of peace and preparation. The hours of celebration came after the quintessential legions returned victorious, with these celebrations not lasting too long before many entities went back to the task of elevating their power. And in the midst of all of this, whispers began to spread. Within the infinite existential omniversal seed, across the countless swathes of space, within a myriad of Alithian havens, there was a small region filled with stellar suns of Helios and golden radiance stretching all around. In a certain star at the center of that region, a massive castle made of crystalline gold light rose to the skies to show off its glory. In such a castle, a balcony with a pool shimmering with gold water could be seen, along with the pristine figure of Lilith in crimson swimwear to match the occasion floating at the edges of the pool, as she stared above the distant stars of Helios. A radiant halo silently buzzed a few inches above her head, causing her demonic horns to shine in the night. Her blessed chest bobbed up and down the waters as from the depths of the castle, another figure came into the balcony while holding a white tray filled with dazzling fruits of existence. A halo shone above her as well, her figure adorned in thin, comfortable clothing that showed off her curves as her gold-blue locks of hair cascaded past her shoulders radiantly. It was none other than Ayame of the Infinite Extremity who came and dipped her toes into the water, tossing a quintessential fruit of existence towards Lilith as she asked lightly, "Are you joining the tournament?" The prize is something similar to what allowed Prince Henry to attain autarky. The whispers echoing out across the infinite existential omniversal seed that were told by the existential omniversal Lumen Emperor himself. A tournament, with the prize being a seed of existence for its champion, as they would be able to attain autarky thereafter. It was so enticing that likely nobody would miss it. Lilith bit into the fruit and smiled as she replied, "We all have the ridiculous boons from his lineage. It became even thicker in the past days, as now, even I can utilize the influence of 3 greater omniversal authorities. This should be the same case for everyone, as overcoming everybody else to be a champion in this tournament. It was bound to be hard. Immeasurably hard." Ayame nodded as she stared out into the halcyon expanse as well. Yes, the difference will have to be made from your own design skills or innate abilities, and depending on whether you are a follower of infinity or quintessence. The ranks of power were hard to ascertain for many entities across the infinite existential omniversal seed, with Noah's lineage boosting all of them immensely as those with the purest of his blood became even more powerful. Ayame and Lilith knew this well, as the visage of Lilith rose from the pool to come sit beside Ayame, her gaze filled with brilliance as she replied firmly, "No matter the challenges, we will join the tournament as well." I couldn't believe I would be here just weeks ago, so who knows where we could be days from now.
Wah!
Her words pulsed the surroundings as tendrils of Helios in the nearby space rippled. Ayame and Lilith, two entities coming from drastically different environments, one stemming from a demon world in a tiny universe, as another was a scion havens of extremity. Their origins and weavings of existence were so far apart that if one was in tune with fate or destiny, they would say the paths of these entities were ones that would never cross. And yet these two beings formed an unlikely friendship after going through trials together. Unlikely friendships like these were abundant in the infinite existential omniversal seed that brought entities from different times and places, but all of them were looking for the same destination. Chapter 31, 61, Momentary Peace, a sec. Sitting side by side with their legs dipped into the golden waters of a pool, the figures of Lilith and Ayame remained filled with power and serenity as, at this moment, Lilith gazed at the suns of Helios far above while asking slowly, "When was the last time you talked with him? From the records you've shared with me, you moved together with him across dissolution and Helios." A light of interest was flickering in her eyes as what she asked caused Ayame to shake her head while replying with a smile. "I haven't personally spoken with him these past days. He feels like the same man I got to know briefly back then, but now he also just feels too far away. I don't think I could look at or speak to him like I used to. It's hard to explain, but..." As she was answering, she turned her eyes to the daughter of hatred as she asked sharply, "This is the third time you've asked about him. Are you interested in our great emperor? He's already got his harem around him, and I don't know how messy it is right now, or if he's just as capable in handling the emotions of everyone in that whole web as he is in terms of his power." The collection of women around the true emperor is so grotesque. He knew just what emotions they felt on a day-to-day basis, and exactly how the existential omniversal lumen emperor took care of them. Well, he does have a lot of clones and dilated time, so... Ayame had this thought in her mind as beside her, the daughter of hatred laughed while waving her hand. "I was his enemy all the way back then. It truly just seems like yesterday. I was stronger than him, held legions under my banner, and so on. The grandiose dimensional Hellion ruler, the dimensional deceiver. Haha, it all seems worthless now. He came out of nowhere and ate everything up." Her gaze seemed reminiscent as she thought about the desolate mausoleum and the dimensions under her banner. She shook her head as she answered Ayame's question. "No, I don't see myself entering his grand harem, but of course, I've never stopped being curious about the man who bested me and is currently leading this whole ridiculous circus of freaks and monsters. Like, what the hell is even going on in his mind? Even this tournament he's starting tomorrow. How is he able to just think of doing something like that while around the Omniverse? The threat of the devouring worms that treat every ounce of power we have built so far as useless is waiting. Is he just that confident that he will overcome this just like everything else? Is he planning everything for what is coming in the future, or does he make it up as he goes?" Ayame calmly watched Lilith continue to speak as both of their feet waded across the golden waters. Her gaze was far as Ayame couldn't help but shake her head while looking at her friend. She may be telling the truth regarding the existential, omniversal lumen emperor, but she didn't see the fascination she showed just while speaking about that. So she tried to offer a solution as but on another quintessential fruit of existence. "You could always just ask him. Send your thoughts across your lineage and he'll probably bring a clone of his before you." Lilith turned to stare at her as if she were crazy as she shook her head while rising from the golden pool. "Why would I do something like that? What would I even say to him? We are currently at entirely different places. No, I'll do what I set off to do not too long ago. I'll seek for a seat of power that would distinguish me as a ruler once more. For this, let's put our all into the coming tournament." The eyes of the daughter of hatred burned with a glorious competitive light as Ayame smiled and nodded at her words. Yes. Come on. The healthcare branch of Dr. Hall's practice of life now has students capable of giving existential massages and pedicures. Let's relax a little tonight before the business of tomorrow." Ayame pushed the daughter of hatred, who was absorbed in her thoughts, towards another location as these two beings, just like many millions and billions and trillions of others within the infinite existential omniversal seed, lived their own lives. Amidst all the wars, amidst all the conflict, upgrades, and elevation of the infinite existential omniversal seed, a wondrous culture and civilization continued to advance within it in different forms of entertainment, businesses, and rituals. Dr. Hall's practice of life had multiple branches extending to different sides of medicine that many entities came under his banner to work on. There were those who became fanatics of the armaments that could be made within the infinite existential omniversal seed as they lived within forges. There were those taking the example of the true emperor of quintessence and were seeking the essence of cooking. Many chefs rising to see how many different delicacies could be made from domesticated, fantastical animal species made from breeds of dragons or phoenixes. And more. All of this lay in the slightly deeper surfaces of the infinite existential omniversal seed, as truly it was full of life. Within it, hours passed, and a tournament began. Oh! Roars of excitement boomed out within a portion of the Alethine Haven of Genesis. A white gold sea stretched out all around as at its very center, two figures with raging influences of greater omniversal authorities were clashing, and tens of thousands of miles all around. Small white gold thrones by the millions surrounded the sea to form a massive arena. On the millions of seats were some of the more prominent entities within the infinite existential omniversal sea. Around the circular white gold thrones forming the arena, there was a portion with even more regal thrones, and at its very center, a massive throne where the existential omniversal Lumen Emperor sat on could be seen. He watched the ongoing tournament as on a throne near him, the Sanctus Autarch looked at the battle before her while voicing out. I was going to ask why you would do this tournament when you should already have a gauge on who would win, but I see why now. She spoke with autarchical authority as Noah smiled at her words, nodding as he replied blandly. Yes, in the midst of apocalypses and wars, people have to have something to release their stress on. I'll make sure dungeons and tournaments become more mainstream. Apart from everything else occurring, Noah still had other plans for development, among other things. Chapter 3162, Exit and Entry, 1. A white gold sea of an arena vibrated as combatants fought above it for supremacy. The vibrant figure of little Kakalatan currently fighting against Bubbles, or formerly the one taking the identity of the blue slime. An array of entities fought within this tournament, ranging from those who had been with Noah the longest, like Kazuhiko and the Emperor Penguin, to weavings of old records like Commander Feng to the primogenitor of Steel, all the way to weavings of Lumen like Piety. Each one sought to make their mark as nearly all the powerful entities of the infinite existential omniversal seed participated. Nearly all. The Sanctus Autarch turned her head further to the side of Noah's throne as she squinted while asking the graceful figure of Sona. Why didn't you fight for such an opportunity? One of her many daughters. She was exceptional in many ways, yes, but did she truly believe that she didn't need something that could advance one towards autarky? Sona blinked a few times as she shook her head towards the Sanctus Autarch while replying calmly, I don't need it. She didn't need it. She really said such words that stumped the Sanctus Autarch as in between them, Adelaide and Barbatos exchanged glances as if they knew something others didn't, while on his throne, Noah only smiled. Far away from the ongoing tournament, within a portion of the desecrated existential Chronos domain, Noah's ascendant existential extremity clone of quintessence stood before another body of Sona, his chest splitting open to release an icy gold-blue heart tinged with tendrils of colorless light. The heart that Sona had given away to him not too long ago. Being with him during his advancements, especially the advent of the Atlas of Existence and subsequent entry as the laborer of such a construct, this omniversal organ of Sona carried weavings of a seed that were even more pristine than simple autarky. I was looking for anomalies to assemble into the initiative this whole time, and it seems I really should have stopped after finding them. Her eyes glowed with brilliance as she accepted the vastly altered omniversal organ that was much too different compared to when she gave it away. With it, She could confidently say that her titles of a genius and anomaly meant nothing if she couldn't assimilate it to arrive at autarky and even adopt the uniqueness that Noah was taking with him across his journey. It sank into her chest as instantly their surroundings turned freezing cold, glacial waves of authority surging all around as radiant dignity filled with a colorless brilliance unfolded. The heart of hers was no longer what it was before. What it was now, the existential autarchical dominium seed. A seed. She didn't need the seed of existence from Noah to attain autarky, because truly, he had given her a heart in the form of another seed that would undoubtedly sprout to something even grander. Boom! From the depths of Sona's existence, a colorless light began to explode and vibrate outwards. Time passed. The tournament lasted a whole day as many entities gave their shot, glorious battles waiting through the eyes of many, as a myriad of concepts were displayed to the fullest. Everyone strove for the title of champion, but it all shockingly came down to 4 beings. The matches occurred simultaneously, as it was Kazuhiko against the Emperor Penguin. And on another part of the arena, Commander Feng was facing the relentless attacks of the Daughter of Hatred. The commander has stanchions of golden pillars surrounding him and smashing toward the Daughter of Hatred strategically, his eyes glowing coldly as he spoke out. Your drive and emotions may be high, but that is not everything in existence. Just because you think you deserve something does not mean it is yours to attain. Even when you imitated me before, you failed. His words would cast doubt in the heart of any common entity, but for one that had lived for millions of years, for one that had endured, manipulated, and deceived, they were whispers of nothing. The authority of multiple greater omniversal authorities stacked in between 2 massive demonic horns, crimson tendrils of an extremely pure authority guiding all of them as a sonorous will was carried along with them. You were a great man then, and you are a great man now. But when it comes to the drive between us, I truly don't know if that is anyone that could compare to my hatred. Hatred. It was such a pure concept, paired with the genuine emotion and core being of Lilith. The greater omniversal authority of Hada boomed out at the forefront. This authority that was yet another intersect amongst omniversal authorities was pulled out by her deep hatred as it thundered down onto the figure of Commander Feng. On the other part of the arena, the combatants that had knocked out Piety and Tiamatherion were facing each other as their history traced truly far back into the records of the existential omniversal Lumen Emperor. Kazuhiko from Noah's homeworld. The Emperor Penguin, the first spiritual beast of the source of the infinite existential omniversal sea. A storm of obsidian katanas swung forth constantly in a barrage of attacks that carried the influence of a greater omniversal authority with each strike. While behind the illustrious Emperor Penguin, a massive golden axe glinting with pride was grasped in its flippers as it swung away everything coming forth. Who said my axe could be blocked? Who decided that your defenses are impervious? Boom! Katanas were being knocked down and shredded as the concept of pride was pulled out to its utmost, the boon of the purity of their lineage that these 2 beings had, which allowed them to triumph over others being roughly the same between them, as their battle was a tough one. But eventually, a victor was decided. In the other arena, the visage of a tantalizing demon stretched her hand out towards a knockdown Commander Feng. This record filled with countless thoughts, as it actually turned out to be its loss. On the other battlefield, the dark-haired Kazuhiko grasped the flippers of the Emperor Penguin tainted with blood, this prideful beast letting out a harumph as it let it be known that things were not over. Oh! The millions observing in the surroundings cheered as only 2 entities were left in the arena, a dark-haired man holding a katana, and a demoness that couldn't even believe she was there. Chapter 3163, Exit and Entry. 2. Atop a white gold sea, 2 figures stared at each other from a distance as a rising silence echoed out all around them. The cold eyes of Piety, who was knocked out a few rounds before, burned with competitive spirit. The shining eyes of the Cimmerian architect, who was knocked out by Commander Feng, burned with intellect. The primogenitor of steel was somber at not being able to advance after falling to someone who should be his junior in age and wisdom, the Emperor Penguin. But within the infinite existential omniversal seed, Power was guaranteed by the purity of the existential omniversal Lumen Emperor lineage, and this was mainly affected by how close one was to Noah. Power was guaranteed by the resources within the infinite existential omniversal seed, and such resources were much freer in the hands of those closest to Noah. Thus, even ancient entities and records of past weavings like Oppenheimer, Commander Thun, or the primogenitor of Steel were knocked out in the rankings of power. Following this mindset, the friend of the true Emperor of Quintessence, who was with him since his homeworld, was understandable to be where he was. But Lilith? She was not close to the true Emperor, nor was her purity and lineage as pure as others. So how did she reach here? You're thinking too much. Whop! The battle had already begun. Kazuhiko divided into 1,000 clones shrouded in darkness, as dozens of clones instantly surrounded the Daughter of Hatred, whose body exploded with nefarious crimson smoke soon after. The battle fully unfolded under the eyes of all. Weavings of greater omniversal authorities unfolded. The innate, infinite, quintessential bloodline halos of Lumen on both of them shone brightly in the first 10 minutes, before both shattered and became inactive. Swords hummed, horns bloomed. A certain phoenix watched Kazuhiko with a calm gaze, even though her fists were clenched. The visage of Ayame watched the Daughter of Hatred, as at a certain point, she rose from her seated throne and bellowed out in support. Hatred went against pure skill and proximity to Noah, as everyone saw the overwhelming potency of such an emotion. But at the end of the day, Shing! A clear blade of an extremely sharp katana came to press against the neck of the Daughter of Hatred after a whole hour of exhaustion. Her eyes shone vehemently with defiance, but the reality did not change nonetheless. The rankings on the banner of Quintessence shifted greatly today, with this tournament giving chances to many as the queens of the infinite existential omniversal seed did not participate. She thought. A booming feminine voice echoed out across the white gold sea. The name echoed out across planes of existence and havens, the skies splitting open to reveal an incandescent, colorless green seed of existence that rained down over Kazuhiko's head. Lilith rose up while gazing at this descending treasure with a gaze of yearning, but she ultimately turned away as this was not hers. She was close to grasping something, but sadly, her hatred was not enough. She Victor! The booming feminine voice ushered out again as the cheers that were about to begin halted. In the skies above, a crimson colorless seed of existence erupted down and began its descent as Lilith! Wah! The existential omniversal Lumen Emperor had defeated 3 autarch equivalent existences himself. His son and the Sanctus Autarch had defeated another 2. For this tournament, 2 seeds of existence came down as the visage of Lilith fell to her knees, tears streaming past her cheeks as she raised her hand towards the dazzling colorless crimson seed of existence. It was a scene gazed at with scrutiny by many, where in the far distance the visage of Guinevere, Lancelot, and many others connected to the 9 dimensions shone brightly. But the deed was done. 2 shining stars rose from the tournament within the Var-El Aeonic Omniverse record, and from it, 2 new autarchs were welcomed within the infinite existential omniversal seed. The Autarch of Hatred and the Autarch of the Sword. Silently, a past Sanctus princess also attained a realm similar to autarchy. This wasn't to mention the son of Osmont, whose power had reached unprecedented levels as the first produced autarch within the infinite existential omniversal seed. And all of this still left behind 2 seeds of existence obtained from the commanders of the Phesingid and Satirus nymph legions. For the days to come, the changes that would continue were many, and the existential omniversal Lumen Emperor fully utilized these days to prepare. The tide of time continued to flow as the days passed within the Var-El Aeonic Omniverse record, until no succession of omniversal Ankyras exists within the Var-El Aeonic Omniverse record, and its lifeline has been sustained for as long as it could be absent any Ankyra. The Var-El Aeonic Omniverse record has begun its descent into an endless slumber. 2 prompts flashed before Noah's eyes as he held a shining seed in his hands, the infinite existential omniversal seed, while he looked out to a crumbling Aeonic Omniverse record around him. He was given days, and he truly utilized these days. His wings, his heart, his eyes, his lungs. They were either elevated omniversal organs or entirely new ones, And this was in addition to the Atlas of Existence and its wonders that we had explored in the last raid. It is time. A terrifying, unseen authority vibrated around him as he instantly physically disappeared. He made an exit from one place, and was making an entry to another. A place that was frozen in an instant of a moment, as in such a space. Imperium legions were swarms of devouring things waiting. But as Noah left the Var-El Ionic Omniverse record, his things crumbled in the minutes that followed the weavings of the entire Var-El Ionic Omniverse record trembled as an utterly terrifying consciousness spread out across it. A consciousness whose weavings seemed surprised initially as it held utterly unique power and standing of existence. What is this? It seemed more like a question filled with curiosity, but the intent ringing out alone caused what remained of the Ionic Omniverse record to shatter and crumble by the way. Chapter 3164, The Worm of Existence. Moments after Noah left, as if even though the Indy 6 scribably unique weavings of all artificial omniversal and kairos were gone, his departure further allowed things to fall apart. It was at this time that a terrifying will descended and swept out across the dying Var-El Ionic Omniverse record. This will only being able to catch a glimpse before everything collapsed. Interesting. A single other glorious blaze of their will. And after that, boom, the Var-El Ionic Omniverse record was no more, an instant of time. This was how long some supremely powerful beings could take a moment of time and expand it, with a true emperor having done just this within a battlefield filled with chaotic entrants. Stay together. A bellow came out from Exarch Chevron as her hair whipped around gloriously, the legions of the Imperium lining up around her and the other Exarchs to minimize the damage as much as possible. But at the same time, she already sent word out as she knew they needed stronger Exarchs here. The Exarchs, closely situated around the Imperium Autarch himself, Exarchs holding that same level of power. She had to call for such forces as their enemies were just that powerful. The enemies were just that tricky. What she didn't like was the fact that the entity connected to the unearthing of Lumen disappeared along with the forces of the Sanctus Populi. Even though in the surroundings, massive sentinels of Lumen continued to appear amidst incandescent white gold storms of flames that were greedily being taken in by the devouring worms. Their paracosms were immeasurably powerful, with the exclusive existential extremity authority of Imperium carrying with it something that other people may not even understand. The omniversal authorities raging around them were abundant, as many of them either held codexes of extremity in their hands or equipped on their body. But even all of this, rubbish, was being pushed back, as even the Exarchs found themselves on the losing end against the devouring worms. This couldn't be allowed to continue. The thoughts of Exarch Chevron came to a halt. She wasn't the only one. Other Exarchs, Martial Empress Yelena, Imperium Knights in all ranges of the Dominion realm, even the buzzing figures of the winged devouring worms filled with piercing sickle-like limbs. Everybody came to a stop as their gazes were pulled towards a single area. An area where the one who was unearthing the weavings of Lumen had disappeared. This being reappeared after what seemed like the passage of a mere instant. And yet, his mere presence felt magnetic, ecstatic, unfathomable. It felt like the aura of an entity far distinguished from them. And yet they couldn't sense even a strand of existential extremity authority around him at this moment. Adorned in white emperor's robes, his figure seemed like it had just stepped out of an Ionic painting, as he exuded a sense of profound beauty. A halo of brilliance spun above him, as when one looked at him, there was another feature that caused their eyes to feel as if they were cut by a knife of time and causality. His colorless wings on his back and feet, feathered and wrapped in tendrils of colorless light, they caused one's eyes to flicker and feel like their very existence was being ground down. What was most obscene of all was something that Exarch Chevron and other Exarchs felt closely that caused their gazes to become immeasurably somber. They felt their eyes forcefully be pushed down whenever they stared at this being, as if his sheer glory was too much for them, as if after catching a glimpse, they couldn't continue to look on anymore. If they went against their gazes being pushed down, their very existence began to tremble as if they were already in battle. This, the mouth of Exarch Chevron